PEC Education is one of the leading PTE test training providers in Dhaka, Bangladesh. PEC Education started its journey in 2016 with providing one-stop PTE academic supports and services. There are several PTE courses that PEC offers both online and on campus to its students. All of the PTE courses includes PTE study materials and free PTE mock tests. Please call for detailed information PTE course preparation and services to 01713167969 or visit the website www.pecpte.com.
Western country child birth rates. In the Western countries, women are becoming more and more reluctant to give birth to babies. However, the male status in society remains as strong as it ever has in recent years. The birth rates increased during the early 20th century, but it started to decrease over these last 2 decades. In the year 2000, as example, the birth rate remained at around 1%. There are even some negative birth rates in other countries. Birth rates dropped to their lowest point that has ever been seen in society. It also has impacts on males in society, especially young males. And it might even have some connection with unemployment rates as well.
The lecture talks about the child birth rates in European countries. In the beginning of the lecture, the speaker mentioned that the rate decreases to historical low in recent years. The reason is that women in Europe are unwilling to give birth, especially those young women under 30 years old. At the end of the lecture, he concluded that the phenomenon would affect man's position of life, which will increase their unemployment rate.
At the top, you would have a king. Now the king would rule over a kingdom. Now this is not so easy to govern, especially during the Middle Ages, and the king might owe many people things, especially people who helped the king come to power, helped him depose the previous king or to conquer this land. And so in exchange for that, and to help govern, he might grant land or fiefs to other people. And the key currency in the Middle Ages under the feudal system is land, and land in exchange for loyalty and service. So this whole thing is a kingdom. Now right over here, this is a duchy. And a duchy will be controlled by a duke. I guess they didn't call it duchy because that just doesn't sound as serious. So the king might grant a duchy to a duke, and in exchange, the duke would provide loyalty, pledge their fealty. If the kingdom is threatened, the duke will fight alongside the king, would provide their own troops. If the king wants to go conquer other territories, same thing. And also provide the king with taxes, which might be in the form of coinage, depending on what time and region we are in the Middle Ages, or it might be in the form of a percentage of the agricultural production from this duchy.
The lecture talks about how the king governs his kingdom. He states about the many difficulties during the Middle Ages and also concerned about the people whom the king owes for coming into power, to conquer the land. The king might provide land or feast as compensation for their loyalty and service. The lecture also mentions about granting a duchy. In exchange, the duke would provide loyalty during any threat.
Here are three important factors in creativity: people, process, and product. The most important one is the process. First, you have to create the right person through education with a creative mind. Second, you have to create the right process to have people engaged in the innovation process. Third, you need to find the right problem to work on. Human beings can survive and prosper largely depending on the creativity they have. If you identify and assess the creativity of a finished product, it is taken as a proxy for the creativity of the person who produced such a product. Therefore, a creative product should be surprising, original, beautiful, and useful. People should have factors necessary for genius, ability, and the right mindset. You should improve to imitate and change insight, look from new perspectives. Innovately create something with imagination to expand the conceptual spaces.
Three important factors for having creativity are people, process, and product. Among them, the most important point is process. First, we can create the right person with education. To get the right process, we need to have the people engaged. And then we need to find the right problem to work on. A creative product can be surprising, original, beautiful, and useful.
Australia's location is important for the world's exports, and its international trade is also important. Since Australia has a large territory with vast, uninhabited areas, all towns are scattered around. This leads to huge expenses for transportation when using trains and ferries. The government also has to pay large amounts for its telecommunications to build up the catching between these regions. The Australian people are mainly living in 5 cities: Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, and Brisbane, and Adelaide. The most special one is Perth, which is one of the most isolated cities in the world. However, this does not affect its state to be one of the largest cities in Australia. Most large companies, like the 2 leading companies, Telstra and Qantas, they are both based in Perth.
The lecture elaborated on Australian cities. It started with describing how important the location of Australia is for exports and how its towns are scattered all around. Therefore, they need to pay a huge expense for transportation. The government aids by paying for its telecommunications. People mainly live in the 5 big cities, namely Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, etc. Among them, Perth has the largest leading companies.
Why should we bother studying animal behaviour? Well, first and foremost, because we're interested in understanding why animals do what they do. There are lots of other reasons for studying animal behaviour. Conservation biologists need to know what animals do if they're going to save them. Are those animals social or solitary? How much space do they need? And how many mates do they have? Sometimes you can't predict the outcome of research. Fernando Nottebohm started out being interested in how birds know what to sing. Yet his research eventually led to a complete overhaul of the entire field of neurobiology, a totally unanticipated yet utterly monumental effect. And this is the course textbook by John Alcock. The fact that this is in its 9th edition tells you how vast a field animal behaviour is. There's lots of new developments.
The lecturer discusses on the importance of studying animal behavior. He starts with describing the curiosity we have on understanding why animals do the things they do. And also other reasons like, what conservation biologists need to know to save them. It was also said how we cannot fully predict the outcome of research as a scientist created a breakthrough in neurobiology while studying birds.